This guy is such a big deal. He has multiple middlemen to get to this main man. He doesn't have one Twitter handle. The guy's got two Twitters. It's John Ramos, deuces right there on Twitter, JS Ramos06, and also the John Ramos Show. And we're going to get all into that, which is really important. It's a show that, folks, is sweeping the nation right now and is a reason why John Ramos is a national treasure in the sports radio universe. John, it's a pleasure to have you, and I can't tell you how many boxes I had to check off just to get you on. But
I know, Bryan. It's tough. I know my time is really small. So, but for you, I squeezed you in.
Well, how grateful I am for that. Let's get right to the John Ramos Show.
Okay.
It's become a sensation in this country. Why do you think you captivate America?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I just think it's so fast. You don't even have to think about it. Like the theory that we had and that Dan Beyer had, because Dan Beyer thought of the idea of the John Ramos Show. Him and Ryan Music, who's the executive producer of the Doug Gottlieb Show, went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and they were driving to do interviews with players in media day. And just off the top of Dan's head, he said, why don't we ask the players just something about a fake show, the John Ramos Show? And they did. And they were like, so what do you think about the John Ramos Show? And people would be like, huh? And if you listen to the open of the John Ramos Show, in there it says people would say like the John Ramos, what? You know, like, and so that birthed the John Ramos Show itself. And so it's so fast. It's 5 minutes long. We sometimes if it goes too long, we've done something wrong, right? We want to keep it as short as possible. And that's what captivates everybody, is the fact that you don't have to have an attention span or have to get into the nuances of things before you even know it's happening. It's done.
Now, you guys get right after it. And they say that when all of the attention comes, that it changes a person. Like you see actors out there. And so what I'm curious to know is, with all of this scrutiny headed your way, how has it affected your personal life?
Well, my personal life is my personal life. I don't give that information out on any type of interviews, but I can say that it's a lot of pressure to put that show on. I can tell you that. It's a lot. Before it was just more like, let's just do it. But then you have these people that want to hear certain things, or they expect something out of it a certain way. And so you start thinking about that when you're doing it. But in the end, it's all fun and games. That's really what it is. And that's what it should be.
What's one of the biggest giggles you've had from it? Because there's so many. I don't know where to even start, considering how it's just all of a sudden it's laugh after laugh after laugh.
Well, I think the best part about it is when I mess up. I think that's the most important thing. I mean, we're not trying to make it perfect. And I think in imperfect, it's funnier. And so when things go haywire or things go right, look, myself, Ryan Music is really main guy too. When Jonas Knox, Dan Beyer, when it's done with everybody, everybody's in on the joke, right? And so therefore, when you get on the joke, it's funnier because everybody knows where to go, what to do, how to do it, and nobody's caught off guard. The only time people are caught off guard is when they're new to it. So let's say, Bryan, when you were part of the show, maybe you kind of have to do it a couple of times to kind of get in on it. Or when David Gascon, our update anchors, you and David, and anybody else, Isaac Lowenkron, are in on it, they kind of have to understand it a couple of times before they get in on it all, and then it's all good.
So, and we're talking to John Ramos, the brainchild of the John Ramos Show.
Really.
I'm Bryan Fenley, as John mentioned, an anchor at FSR. What does Jonas bring to the dynamic of the John Ramos Show? Because he really seems to add a lot.
Yeah, well, Jonas brings the, I don't know, what most people would want to do. Like, why are we listening to this? You know, what are we doing here? Why are we spending this time doing this? It's crazy. He brings that part to it. And Dan Beyer brings the part of like, just like he's in on everything and just kind of like trying to push it forward. You know, because it needs that kind of push here and there to keep it moving. So yeah, everybody's a part of it that does it, and everybody does a great job in helping it manifest itself. And then it just kind of can either go really, really good or it can go really bad, right? And I almost think the worse it is, the better it is.
Yes.
You know.
What's the line that I remember you saying? And this might be like the opener for every one of the John Ramos Show episodes. Is so and so in? Was that because of nepotism? Oh, tune in to the John Ramos Show. What was that? It was so funny. The line. Did so and so get that job because of nepotism? Tune in.
Oh well.
Episode.
Let me tell you something. The John Ramos Show is a look at what we perceive as a lot of the stuff going on in the sports world, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of a nudge, wink, wink type of stuff. So you kind of have to stay really close to listen. You really have to have your ears open to kind of hear all the little, punches and stuff at many things going on. So we don't really say specifically, but you kind of get the gist of it when you hear certain things. So
you had to.
I'll leave it at that.
I like that. You had to keep your satellite dishes open when you were trying to find a niche in this career, and you were looking for opportunities. How did you first get in the door at FSR? And I know this might be prehistoric. I mean, because of how long you've been there. I'm just kidding.
Well, I actually been in the radio since I graduated from college. That was back in 1991. But I got over to KLAC in 2007 and spent about 2 years there with David Vassay, with Petros and Money, with the Loose Cannons, which was Steve Hartman back then, Michael Thompson, Vic the Brick. And I was kind of like helping out and would kind of try to help David with guests when with Petros and Money, help him if he wasn't there, he'd ask me to fill in for him to produce, and I'd help the producer for Loose Cannons, which was Son Edom at the time, book guests. I was just trying to figure out how to take a part-time job and expand it and use all my 20 hours, right? Because I was on the board on the weekends, and I figured, well, that's only like 16 hours, right? So I have another, 10 hours or whatever. And I just asked, hey, what can I do? As you know, in radio, what can I do, right? Absolutely. How can I help out? And Don Martin and the guys there, Bryan Blackmore at KLC, were very, hey, if you want to fill in some more time, why don't you help out Loose Cannons? Why don't you help out Petros and Money? And so I did. And I spent my weekdays showing up for 2 to 3 hours, helping out. And eventually, somebody who worked there said, hey, there's a full-time job, because obviously it was part-time, over at Fox Sports Radio. If you want to apply for that, let me know. And I went, sure. Sure enough, I got the job, and I started as an editor in 2009 and worked my way back up to running the board. And that's where I'm at today. I've been there since that's almost 11 years now. It seems like yesterday, but it's been 11 years.
What's the energy like? I love the atmosphere that the Doug Gottlieb Show has, and I know you're a big part of that, but seeing how that show has grown since you started with it, what has that been like from your perspective?
Well, Doug is interesting. He works hard at what he does, and he's just, knowledgeable about sports, and that's obviously a good thing. And then, you're not quite sure when you start in a new show. I've been in many new shows at Fox Sports Radio in the time slot that I had, and you're never quite sure. Like, you come off a show where you're heavily involved in the show, which was Mohr, and you go to a new show, and you're like, am I going to be as heavily involved anymore? You don't want to push yourself.
Sure.
And as a technical producer, you learn how to work your way in and how to gather the trust of the host. And so with Doug, you work every day and you work hard, and then you get to know the person you're working with. And Doug, at the beginning, was like, this is my show, but hey, if you guys want to get involved, let me know. And pretty soon he was like, hey, if you want to do some drops at the end of this, do it. And I started doing that. And then pretty soon you get a rapport with the person. Then you start putting drops in here and there, and you get a feel, and they get to feel for you. So it's all about chemistry. It's all about getting to know the person you work with. You don't just want to walk into a show and just start doing drops all over the place. Because then they're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And then pretty soon they pull back, right? And then now you can't do anything. So you have to learn how to let it be and work your way around and ask questions. And we've done a good job of that. And like I said, Doug's been really open to a lot of different things. And so I'm excited and happy that we're at the point that we are now. So it's been good. The
great John Ramos is with us. My final question, you brought up Mohr, And what were the highlights of being
Oh.
a part of that show?
It was wonderful. I had a great time. You know, when I started in radio a long time ago, I always wanted to be a part of an ensemble. Always wanted to be part of a show that like you were part of it, and it was like this kind of slapstick funny stuff.
Yeah.
And that's everything it was. I mean, Jay had this great line, which was, you know, it's tough to make people laugh. It's not easy being a comedian, and it's not. Everybody thinks you could just make people laugh left and right. Like everybody is a comedian, but it's not like that. You know, comedians are comedians because they have something that innately makes them funny. And everybody can be funny, but you have to find your way. You have to find out. You got to play off other people. Otherwise, you'd be a comedian, right? Not a technical producer. But he let us kind of be ourselves, and I had a great time. That was a fun 3 years in radio at FSR, and I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I was a part of it, and I have nothing but positives to say about that show. So,
FSR is sure glad to have you. John Ramos, not one, two Twitter handles, JS Ramos 06, John Ramos Show.
That's
Follow
right.
both of them. I'm Bryan Fenley. John, it is an honor. Appreciate you. This was a whole lot of fun.
Thanks for your time, Bryan. Thanks for working it out, squeezing me in on your time. I appreciate that, and we'll talk soon.